Welcome to This Week in the PNFL. I'm your host, Mark Hill, and along for the ride is Mitch Grawl and Dean Chambers. How you doing tonight, gentlemen?
Very good.
Fantastic.
All right. So, lots been going on within the PNFL. A lot of things been going on within the PCFL. Took a week off, a little hiatus to take a little break. And now we're getting everything set up and getting ready to jump right back into it. We have a lot coming up. We still have the PCFL college race going on. The number one ranked teams, we'll go over that, top ranked teams, top 8. So we can start kind of looking at that picture. And the PNFL, we just had our training camp. We're getting our practice squads in. We have analysis of our draft to see how that all went. So lot to talk about today. So if you guys are ready, we are going to jump right into the PNFL news. So, guys, we had our draft. Took a little bit longer than what we normally. I think our quickest one was like 36 hours. This one was a little bit longer. And I know that there's probably, I think there was some.
For most stuff.
Yeah, but I know there were some people saying we should have gone a little bit faster. I know for me, it impacted me in my later rounds, but overall it wasn't our longest draft, so it wasn't our shortest one either. So we're in the middle. So before we go into the training camp side, let's take a look at the draft. And we know we have our Mr. Analysis over here, Mitch Grawl. So I think I'm going to start this off since I know he's the man with all the documents and the data. So, Mitch, how did the draft go? How did teams rank? Yeah. Who did well and who completely botched it?
Well, I tell you what, yeah, I was able to complete my full analysis, and there were some definite winners and some definite question marks out there. First of all, I will say, because I know everyone's going to think it, well, Mitch, we know your team's going to be near the top because it's your draft board and your stuff. And yes, it is. I come out ranked, I think, number 3 in the drafting here. So we'll just say that. But I'm not going to focus on what my team is. Let's focus on what some of the other teams have done. And so Las Vegas actually, due to the fact they only had one draft pick, actually ended up, based on the numbers, that's the top-ranked draft just because of the value they got on that one pick. So I'm going to kind of discount them because they only had one pick in the draft. But nice job, Neil, with that one draft pick you had there. But really, the big winner, or big winners, I would say, in this draft class were the New York Jets. They finished, I guess you take out Las Vegas, they finished number 1 in the overall draft value rankings that I have. New England, so mocks, you and I actually were tied as far as my point scale here. So I think based on my scale, mocks did a very nice job. And then you have Denver, Pittsburgh, and Seattle, kind of the next group of teams there that kind of rounds out the top half or so of the draft, or top 7 teams there. So those are the ones that stood out as kind of winners. On the teams that, at least based on my scale, that maybe left a little bit of value on the board. Jacksonville, after having, I think, a very solid draft last year, had, based on my scale, the weakest draft this year, just based on my calculations. And then Atlanta and then Philadelphia were the next couple of teams that kind of finished in on that bottom 3. Again, this isn't based on people or teams drafting for need or anything specific to that. This is just based on, my draft board and how I base the value of the pick versus the talent of the pick and when they were drafted, and pull this together. So interesting draft. I think it did go by pretty quickly based on the fact that I've been in some of these drafts for the last 10 days. So anything that's less than 48 hours seems fast to me. So I think it went well. But that's my my quick analysis from the draft, Mark.
Okay. Any comments that you have on his analysis, Dean?
Yeah, well, you know that according to you, this is all like splitting hairs on how many hairs you can put on the tip of a needle because these guys are all 98% of max anyway.
Yeah, so it doesn't matter.
No, it's not academic. It's entertainment value.
There you go.
You just be like the WWE. This is not, we don't take this seriously. It's just entertainment.
There you go.
Yeah, just pure stirring the pot here. But if you want to know, based on our fractions of a point difference, this is kind of where people fall out based on my scale. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I think in many cases for teams, what outweighed the fractions of a point of difference or the, well, I could have drafted that guy who would have been rated slightly higher is really neat. I mean, I know in the case of my team, there were certain positions that I wanted to get a player at. And in some instances, you know, like the second pick I selected, I needed a cornerback, and I realized I better take it now because if I don't take it now, then what's going to be left if I do it on the next pick is going to be even less acceptable than what's on the board now. So you know, for many teams, I think these picks were more need-based. It wasn't just always a matter of picking best available athlete. I mean, ideally, one could just simply pick best available athlete at every position, and they find themselves short in some positions and long in other positions to make trades. But training is not as easy as one would think because we do overall have somewhat of a glut of talent at all positions, at all levels. So it's what often would drive trades in past leagues I've been in is that teams would find themselves short at certain positions and try to trade for a player to upgrade at that position will often kind of weaken another player, another position group in order to do that because the players weren't all 98%. So here I think it makes challenging. And, you know, it was interesting. I was going through some old emails looking for something, you know, through my old PNFL emails, and I found a trade negotiation where I'd been negotiating a trade with Jerry, and I pointed out that trading is really tough because there's so much player talent in the league overall that there really isn't a shortage in anything that would really drive trading. So those are things that we could keep in mind. And I know that all plays into that whole debate about how much we're going to differentiate the ratings of the players. And, you know, we're seeing also how that plays out as far as how the games play in the PCFL as well.
All right. Next item that we're going to talk about within the PCFL with the draft, obviously the next thing that we go through is the training camp. So we had all our training camp numbers that were turned in. We got them all in before the deadline, and the results came out. I do believe the results are now posted on the website as well with the updated rosters. I don't know if you guys have had a chance to go over the results from it.
Yeah, I did look at that because when Rich updated the latest contract file, when you open the contract file, it went to that page where it showed how much teams had gained, and the top team was Philadelphia, which is the youngest team. But I remember several seasons back, the top teams are gaining 3 or 4 points per player on average that were younger. It was like 3 point something. The last time that James had rebuilt his team with a lot of draft picks, he'd run his training camp and get like 3.4 something points per player. What's interesting, the younger teams will gain more players because they have fewer players at a max. Well, the youngest team in the league is Philadelphia, which is James' team. His team gained 1.5 points per player. That's a lot less because our players are closer to being maxed now than they have been in the past. My team, I think, gained like 1.1, 1.2, and the average team gained 1 point per player, and some teams even gained like 0.7, 0.8. So that is because of how compressed our ratings are. It's, again, part of that same issue that we've been talking about.
Yep.
So, and you know, every one of you knows from doing your training camp and Camp Complete that as you go through them, there's so many players that are like 6 or 7 points away from max, but it's 1 point in each rating, and all you can do is just hit one of those and gain 1 point. So you have so many veteran players, even in some cases fairly young players, that can only gain 1 point in training camp because you can just put 65% in one rating and boost, max out that one rating. And I think it was clear compared to what I saw like 5 or 6 seasons ago that those numbers were way down. That number being the average points per player on a given team gained in training camp. And it's in that tab. You can look at that in the contract file and see that, and you see Philadelphia's number one with 1.5. I think Atlanta was like second or third, because my team is the second youngest team. I signed 11 rookies in this last draft. I had, I think, 8 or 9 in the previous one and 7 or 8 in the one before that. So a good percentage of my team are players in the last 4 drafts, which are 3, 2, 1, and are in the age number.
Right.
So my team is fairly young. That also, I noticed also when you compare that and you compare the salary cap figures when you look at the points tab in the contract file, I noticed that the salary cap figures tend to be a little bit biased in favor of veterans over younger players, even younger players that are very high in ratings. And they also tend to be a bit biased in favor of players that are maxed out or close to maxed out in the ratings. If you look at someone like Jalen Brooks, who's a wide receiver that I drafted in the previous draft, he came maxed out as a rookie. Or you look at George P. on Jacksonville, another wide receiver that came maxed out as a rookie. Their salary numbers are pretty high because they're maxed out. But you look at some of my other players that need 4 or 5 points in training camp, even though their overall potentials are much better. For example, Xavier Worthy that I just drafted gets a bit substantial salary figure than others because he's a rookie that still has points to gain in training camp, even though his overall ratings and potentials are actually quite high. So younger teams are generally going to have a substantially lower salary figure. I think it kind of underrepresents the value of the talent on those rosters. I mean, I think anyone can look at James's team and still look at his defensive players, the cornerbacks that he's drafted, a couple of the linebackers that he's drafted, probably 4 or 5 of the defensive linemen that he's drafted. And those are top quality talent players, and they'll eventually be some of the better players in the league when they get closer to being maxed out. But yet their current salary figures are fairly low because of the built-in bias of that salary model.
Okay. Let's see, Mitch. Do you have any counter to that, or are you in agreement?
No, I think Dean did a nice job of digging into that piece. So I'll just leave my comments to the draft.
Okay. All right. So we have those 2 things that are done. Next thing that we have coming up this week, we have to get our practice squads taken care of. I believe when the deadline on that is this Sunday?
Yeah.
6? All right. So you have to have your players set for your practice squad. As Rich would say, if you don't have it done, he will do it for you. And he doesn't care who he puts over there. So you have to get that taken care of, do your analysis. And after that, then we start going in and getting your PPPs ready. You guys have had, I'm going to take a page out of Mitch's book, actually. You guys have had plenty of time to get the stuff done. You should be noodling around, getting some stuff together, getting yourself all prepped up for week 1. So those are the next thing that's coming up. There is a change to the PPP deadline. Now it has to be in at 10 o'clock on Fridays, Eastern Standard Time. But if you want to be honest, if you use the Mitch Grawl curve, it should be turned in by 8 o'clock on Thursday.
Mm-hmm.
You notice that he has not commented on it, so it may sound like a dull joke, but yeah, that silence means in his mind, he's like, you're right.
No, I actually was on mute. I was commenting. I was saying it's actually midnight on Wednesday, Mark. Midnight Wednesday.
Midnight
No,
on
but
Wednesday.
I think this change though does, since so many of you all started participating in our Friday Night Lights streaming, and we had a really good time last season. We'd have usually between 7 and 10 of you all join in for at least part of the Friday night streamings. Having this earlier turn-in time, I think allows us to get more of those games played Friday night potentially, and hopefully more of y'all can join, because we did have some good laughs many of those Friday night streaming parties. So look forward to getting those started again here soon.
And some good games, because there was definitely some good games in there as well. So some good overtime games, final minutes of the game, good plays coming up, final seconds. So there's a lot that was going on there. So definitely, if you guys get a chance, go ahead and jump in and join in, because it is interesting. So, I believe that is. I think I pretty much did. We cover everything from the PNFL guys.
Yeah, the practice squads are due this week, and then the bidding on practice squad players. And I don't expect to see a whole lot of practice squad bidding take place. I think teams are pretty much, for the most part, filled up. I know there's a few teams that have a few openings, but I don't see teams wanting to spend, because when you bid on a practice squad player, you have to spend the points to bid on that player and win that player. Then that player gets a 1-year contract, and then if it's a player that's worth keeping, you're going to have to spend more points to extend that contract. And as some of the people in the email discussion pointed out that, and Charlie kind of started this discussion, and it makes sense. If there are players, he said, if there are players in his practice squad you wanted, he'd appreciate that that you would approach him with a trade offer, because some of those players might be like rookies with a 4-year contract. And if you bid and get one of those players that way, that player gets a 1-year contract. You're going to have to spend points to keep them longer than that 1 year. But whereas you contact Charlie or whoever's team it is and you work out a trade arrangement, the player will get traded rather than sign up the practice squad, which means the player keeps his 4-year contract, and whatever happens to be left. It could be a rookie from last year that has 3 years left in the contract. So that's something to keep in mind before one is tempted to go do some, dollar store type shopping for players and, poach practice spots.
Okay, so I'm going to get Mitch's take on this, but I'm going to play, and this can come back and bite me. But again, guys, don't get mad at me. I'm throwing this out here. So if we're trying to keep within the spirit of the NFL, and they just got finished getting their team set, if they have a guy they moved over to the practice squad, do NFL teams actually communicate with someone and say, hey, I'm interested in taking this guy, let's try to work something out? Or are they going to say, hey, I'm going to sign him? Not saying that's what you need to do, because I know a couple seasons back some guys got ticked at me because I went shopping at the practice store, or at the practice squad store. And I think there were some people that were not too happy about that. But, I mean, and the idea was, as I was told by one of the coaches, we're trying to keep within the spirit of the NFL, so you put someone on the practice squad, they can get picked up. So not saying to do it, not saying not to do it. I'm just playing devil's advocate. Mitch, what's your take?
Well, my thought on this is that it actually benefits you if you do see someone on somebody else's practice squad to talk to that coach and just do a trade, because you get to keep the full contract.
Okay.
So to me, it's not about, spirit of rules and all that. It's, I could go and make a bid and take your player, but I mean, I actually get hurt by the fact that if it's a player with a 3 or 4 year contract still available, well, that contract gets basically ripped up and you get him on a 1 year deal. So, all right, I can poach him for 2 points and lose the contract, or I can say, hey, Mark, I'm going to give you 2 points. I'm going to take this guy. So you want me to give you the points and you just trade him to me, or do you
just
want,
lose him?
Right. Or do you just want to lose him? And, I will say, though, I have at times, just for meanness, go, no, that's all right. You just take him. Screw up the person. But typically I'll take the points because I wasn't going to use them anyway. But depends if I'm feeling mean or not. So.
Okay, yeah. So I mean, and in hindsight, yes, I'd say working out a deal with them would be a good idea because again, as you mentioned, you get the bigger, you get a longer contract for them, and it's like, hey, just talk to me first and see if we can try to work something out. So. All right. So I think that pretty much wraps up everything we got going on within the PNFL. If you guys are good with what we have in here, we were going to pivot on over to the PCFL. So I believe that we still have some teams that are available within the league. I'm going to go ahead and turn this over to Dean, so Dean can give us an update on the league, on the teams, and then we'll dig into it a little bit deeper. So, Dean, what's going on in your league?
Yeah, we're entering week 8 games this week, and remember we play a 12-game schedule and then an 18 playoff. So we're entering week 8 games. We completed week 7 games, and some teams are already kind of falling out of contention, with records like 1-6 or 2-5, and we have a handful of teams that are 5-2. I think we have one CPU team that's kind of like the new headless horseman that I believe is 6-1, which I think is Florida, which is just a shocker.
Yep, it's Florida.
So that's where we're headed. We're going into week 8 this week, and we have 7 open teams. So if anyone wants to join, as much as possible, we'd like as many of the 18 teams to be filled before we go into the recruiting in between this season and the next season. And that way we have fewer teams, CPU teams, to do recruiting for. It would go a lot more smoothly if theoretically every one of the 18 teams is managed by a human coach that will do their own recruiting, so that we don't have to manage CPU teams in recruiting.
All right.
So, you may want to talk about, you were talking about the rankings and the, one-loss records. You might want to talk about that. Your team is doing pretty well at 5-2. Steve's team is 5-2. My team is unfortunately 2-5. I've lost a few close games to CPU teams, and my defense hasn't played very well this season in the PCFL. That's something I'm going to have to work on improving.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'll bounce it over to you two to comment.
All right. So I will go ahead and mention real quickly the again, as he mentioned, that the top 8 teams are going to the playoffs. So as it stands right now, even though some teams are on Washington one is on a 2-game losing streak. UCLA is on a 2-game losing streak. But despite that, they're still listed up there in the rankings. So as far as the power rankings go right now, you have Washington at number 1, tied with Texas. Number 3 is Colorado. Colorado, Florida, and LSU. Colorado and Florida are both tied at number 3. LSU is at 5, UCLA, Ohio State is at 6, and Clemson is sitting at number 8 within the rankings. You have Georgia, Penn State, and Florida State all on the outside looking in, but they're on that bubble. Let's see. Then we have Arkansas, USC, Tennessee at 13. Oklahoma's at 15. Michigan's at 17, with Oregon and Notre Dame at 17, tied at the last at 17. So,
I'm going to tell you right now, Georgia is going to knock off Clemson this week. So Georgia will be in that 8th spot next week.
Okay, so they're definitely jockeying on that ladder. So There's been some teams that are definitely trying to make that move, and I think this is I do kind of like this as far as how this ranking is going. I think the playoffs will definitely be an entertaining thing, to say the least. So something that's going on there and having some fun. So again, if you guys don't have a team you want to join, go ahead and join on that one. We also do our games on Discord as well. Mitch, you want to talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, I mean, we'll try to do some on Friday nights, depending on schedules. And if we don't do them on Friday nights, I know Dean and I will usually block out some time on Saturday afternoons. And so we'll try to, just make sure you all are aware when we do that. I think this week we will be able, depending on how many people get stuff turned in, we'll probably play some, late Friday night, since I ain't gonna lie, with the weekend full of college football, I might not be wanting to stream so much on Saturday this week.
Yeah.
But I think we'll probably get some in tomorrow night.
Okay. And Dean, what is the go through the deadlines again for the PPP turn in? I believe that is Fridays. The deadline is Friday at 10, correct?
Yeah, it's Friday night. But if they get turned in earlier, then we can do some games on Discord on Friday night.
Yeah, but when is the deadline? The last one has to be in. You said what, 10 o'clock or 9 or midnight?
I think it's actually midnight Eastern time, which is 9 o'clock my time.
Okay, West Coast time. All right. So.
Right.
I think we pretty much got everything covered. Very short, quick, direct, and to the point. So, as we are we are way ahead of the game. So, but as we come to the end and we're making this final turn, if there's anything you guys want to add that we didn't touch on, now we can go ahead and do it. So, I will start off with Dean. Anything that we missed or anything you want to add in?
Yeah, I just want to say a few comments. The draft went pretty well. The offseason went pretty fast, and I think past off seasons have been a bit longer. And I realize, because I've been working on some kind of off-season game plans and profiles for this coming season, designing some new plays as well, and kind of looking at where my team may be, what direction my team is going in for this current season. And it's easy to get kind of optimistic about, my team is going to do so much better this season. And I've been there in that situation so many times. And, my team has gone 5-11 the last two seasons after going 7-9, which was following the 10-6 2041 season when my team played Steve's team, the LA Chargers, in the Super Bowl. So, but, we are at a time where the league is probably as active as it has ever been, at least since it's been an 18-team league.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not just active, but all of this other participation that most of us are doing between, doing the stuff in Discord and WhatsApp and doing this show that we're doing and all of the other efforts that are being made. So I just want to make some observations about that. And I'm sure all of you are starting to prepare and working on game plans and profiles and revamping your game planning process in its anticipation of this season. And we've also had some chat online. What are people going to do to challenge the top teams? How are you going to beat Justin and Thomas and Jerry and so on? And I asked that question to Tim. I said, well, what's your plan to beat the Jets this season? And he typed, luck, question mark? Because, luck is probably not really a plan. In my division, Jerry has won the NFC East, I don't know how many seasons in a row, but several. Certainly, I think he's probably, other than that one that James went 10-6 and won it, I think Jerry's team has won the NFC East every season since I returned to the NFC East, going back to Atlanta from when I was Kansas City.
Mm-hmm.
So I think, those of us teams that haven't challenged for, and there's a great deal of parity in the league as far as player talent. So I think every one of our 18 teams has enough player talent that you can challenge in these teams and possibly win these games with really good game plans and profiles. So I don't think anyone should look at their roster and think, well, my talent isn't quite there. I don't really have a chance to win this season. I think everyone's team has a chance to win. So I think it comes down to doing what we have to do to be better at playing offense and be better at playing defense and scoring more points and giving up fewer points. And, doing those things, like I said, when I predicted this past season when Green Bay plays Chicago, and I said, well, they're going to do some things. And, of course, my prediction turned out to be, even though that's often not the case, turned out to be correct in that case when Green Bay actually did upset Chicago in that game that weekend. So what do you all have to say? You all getting ready? I feel like you're ready to jump into this season, even though the offseason kind of went by fast.
Oh, yeah. I'm ready to get myself going. I don't even know why we're going to even ask Mitch because, Mitch was ready to go the following week after he got knocked out. So he was ready to go ahead and get kicked off again. So
yeah, I'm already 3-0. I'm already playing the games.
There you go. He's already running.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. I'm ready. Yeah. I think I wondered, and again, this is something to talk about later, but the only thing about the off season is now that the draft is being completed much faster. Because like I said, I know we've had years where it's gone 10 days. But now that it seems as if between WhatsApp and Discord, we're able to move through the draft quicker. I wonder if we should give a full week, to the free agent portion of our off season, given all the way through Sunday before we started there. But I think part of the reason why the draft goes so well too is because we do it on a weekend and more people are available during the weekends to do it. So anyway, but that's the only thing I thought about is that, maybe we extend that free agency period a few days. Not that it impacted me at all, because I don't think I even signed a free agent. But, for others. But other than that, I think our off season has been fine, and I'm looking forward to getting the game started. So that's all I got to say about that.
Well, you're already 3-0. But I was looking at my schedule, and I'm playing 5 playoff teams in the first 5 weeks. And I put that poll up just for the fun of it on the forum. And 6 people voted and said that my team is more likely to lose 10 games this season rather than win 10 games. So,
yeah, I'd say over under 11.5 for Atlanta.
Wow.
I just kidding.
Okay.
Just kidding.
All right. We're going to take one more lap around the track. So anything else, any final words you got over there, Dean?
No, just good luck to everyone in working on their off-season game plans and profiles and plays or whatever you have going on. And let's hope for a really good season this coming season.
All right. Mitch, any final words for you to take us home?
Hey, nothing else to add other than it's time to let's get it.